been playing by the rules, but they don't apply to me.
Arctic dogs. Hope you don't mind, but there is a simple little question I'd like to ask. What in the name of Fridge is Arctic dogs? Here I was, minding my own business, working on other projects, and then suddenly I see at my local theater... No warning, no advertisements promoting this, just, here's an animated movie, now in theaters, come and get it! Seriously, at first glance, this looks like something you'd hear about in a Saberspark video where he'd be like, what the hell is Arctic dogs? Then something that would spontaneously get a wide release. I would lie if I said I never heard of this before. Maybe once or twice in the past where they had a trailer out or something, but I never thought much of it. Guess I have no choice now but to give it my full attention if it wants to be this prominent on the big screen. But you know what's the craziest thing about this? Even more than its sudden release? Have you seen the cast in this thing? Jeremy Renner, Heidi Klum, Angelica Houston, John Cleese, Alec Baldwin? These aren't familiar names that were popular decades ago. This is a cast you'd expect out of a DreamWorks movie, not Arctic dogs. But maybe I'm just overreacting. Maybe this could turn out to be a good surprise. So now that we're checking in the Arctic Blast delivery service, will Arctic dogs be the underdogs of the year? Or should we all agree that nothing good can come out of computer animated Arctic movies? Let's find out. The story. Speaking of Arctic dogs and underdogs, one look at this and some could expect that this is what the story is about. An underdog tale to tell kids that they can do anything no matter who they are. In actuality, there's a lot more to it, because a simple and generic plot is the least of its problems. As it centers around the main character Swifty, the foundation of the journey is immediately shattered by his hateable personality, resulting in an unengaging and unpleasant experience as the movie tries to make a jerk look like the hero that audiences should root for. It doesn't help either that there is absolutely nothing else that the writing offered other than regurgitating cliches overdone by other kids' films. Yes, it's the typical underdog story, but let's not forget the inclusion of predictability from top to bottom, breakneck speed mood shifts, and pointless romance where it almost feels like the film is deliberately making this as bland as it can be. But there's no way that's possible. The story must be doing something else to give itself its own identity, like maybe something to say and deliver a message. Well, kinda? I'm not sure because not even the feature knows what to say. It wants to present a lot of subjects for people to think about, like following your dreams, be yourself, and global warming. But the script is such an unrepairable mess that all these messages seem to be randomly cluttered and got lost along the way. But it's not just conveying messages that this has no clue on what to do. There are many attempts of what this movie thinks is called comedy, but more than half of the time, it's not even noticeable that it's trying to tell a joke because of how flat out unfunny they are.
But you're an albatross. I thought albatrosses were great flyers.
Okay, first, it's albatrosses. Second, don't go labeling me. It's my job.
Because of all this horrible execution, this is the kind of feature that has the ability to slow down time. Despite its 90-minute running time, watching this can feel like an eternity, especially when it gets to the finale where it feels like it's taking forever to finish. I have a high tolerance for sitting through movies, but I was prepared to leave before it even concluded. With a terribly constructed story with all its recycled cliches and failed attempts at commentary and humor, I'm debating if what was done here can actually count as writing. The animation. Considering its all-star cast, I feel like there's a possibility that the budget went more onto the actors more so than on the visuals. Of course, I could be wrong, but when looking at the animation of this film, it's understandable how I could come to this conclusion. It looks cheap! And I don't mean just by the execution and the rendering, which I'll get to later, but also the work put into it feels soullessly manufactured. When looking at the designs, maybe the characters look fine on paper, but when displaying it in a 3D environment, there's just something about them that looks a bit off. Especially when the animators want to be more playful and expressive with them on the character animation, it just makes things worse and unsettling. Also, the backgrounds aren't much to look at, with the generic town set in the Antarctic, the typical villain's evil lair, and lots of snow and glaciers, because I'm sure those are easier to build on a computer than something actually interesting to look at. And yet, even with little creativity, it fails to pull any of them off convincingly. Looking past the designs, there's just something about the textures and the effects that feel more artificial. Like they don't feel immersive or able to bring you into this world because their properties don't function as they should. It's because of that why watching this feels less like a legitimate animated feature and more like a game that's 2 generations old. However, like a video game, this is the first time I've seen an animated feature that needs a patch to fix the bugs. Now, these moments don't happen often, but it does occur when the animation can subtly glitch out and expose the core issue with the visuals. This movie was very poorly rendered, which is what resulted in its low-budgeted look along with the ugly designs and the effects and textures feeling fake. The only positive I can give about this is that at least it's not the most unwatchable animation, like it's not a complete eyesore, and there have been worse out there. It's just that when the concepts are dull and the execution makes things worse, it ends up becoming inexcusably bad animation. The characters. Regardless of whoever voices the characters, whether they be a small up-and-comer or an A-list celebrity, nobody would be able to deliver a performance that could save this disaster. Maybe there are some that tried their best to make the most out of what they were given, but there are also others that you could tell that the enthusiasm for this is just not there. Considering how the script itself is a joke far greater than whatever the movie can pull off, it also translates onto the characters where they become a repulsive and highly annoying cast. The hopeless story and garbage animation are bad enough here, but these guys are the additional salt to the open wound that makes the experience a lot more torturous than it should be. I've already stated this, but one of the biggest issues of this movie is the main character, Swifty. While he is the generic protagonist that wants to make his dream come true to be the admirable top dog for the Arctic Blast delivery service, his determination and passion feels more like arrogance and stubbornness, making him an unlikable dick that shouldn't deserve to be the hero on the count of how his ego is making him stupid. His friends don't really help much either with their one-dimensional personality like PB, the pessimistic coworker, Lemmy, who is just dumb, Magda, Swifty's tough boss, and Jade, the love interest who is smart because he's an engineer. There is also 2 French otters that are conspiracy theorists named Leopold and Bertha that don't appear a lot in the film, but when they do, oh god, take them away, they're too annoying to exist!
It is official! He must become one of us. Commence the initiation ceremony.
And then there's the villain Otto Van Walrus, who highlights another serious issue with the film that I have yet to discuss. Think Swifty, the bad animation, and the stupidity that this movie calls writing is enough? Well, how about we add that this also blatantly rips off other animated films? Of course, it already shamelessly displayed how it took elements from Balto, but with the villain, he has an army of puffins that are trying to be the minions from Despicable Me, and the walrus himself is Mr. Waternoose from Monsters, Inc. There is no other way to put it. He deceives the characters, he hides an evil plan, and he's on this device that moves him around on these spider legs just like Mr. Waternoose. This movie has no shame. I don't care if they're a top dog or just a fox or whatever. This film is just full of characters that give little to no reason why I should care for them or not make me want to whack one of these morons with another one of these morons. I don't know what frustrates me more, that this movie is terrible, or that I had to rearrange my plans at the last minute to devote a good amount of my time in creating something that tells you how this movie is terrible. Arctic Dogs is a disgraceful animated feature that feels exactly like its marketing. There was little to no effort put onto it, it looks completely unappealing, and its sudden addition to theaters feels like a waste of time and a waste of space, as it contains a complete train wreck that thinks is writing that results in a broken down and bland story and completely unappealing characters, along with low quality animation that can often seem unfinished. It's a complete surprise how it managed to even get into theaters or even have such a star-studded cast in the first place. If you ask for my recommendation, no. Just no. Your time is much more valuable than to give this any attention. And for the time that it wasted on mine, I am slamming this one with the AniMat's seal of garbage. Now, if anyone is gonna release another piece of crap that they call an animated film in theaters, at least put in the effort to warn me next time!
And just when I feel